Hello everyone, happy Wednesday. I'm just gonna jump right into it. First of all, I want to apologize for my heater in advance. It's been noisy lately, so if it starts acting up, I will try to talk over it. Today, I'm going to be talking about poetry. This video might get a little long, just a warning, but I'll see how concise I can make it. First off, right here, I've got How to Analyze Poetry. This is an ancient book, but still excellent. One thing I want to talk about today is mood. So, I will read this brief little definition here, and then I'll go into it. Here we go. Mood, the creation of an atmosphere through the proliferation of certain common emotions. If everyone in a poem is sad or speaks of his sadness, for example, there is a mood of sadness dominating the atmosphere or world of the poem. Mood is thus the prevailing tone in a poem, and this tone is established by the accumulation of a set of emotions. We can have a, quote, gay, now they mean happy, right here, they do not mean homosexual, sadly enough. We can have a gay or pensive mood, or a mood of love. There is, in short, a mood for every set of generalized emotions. Okay, so when we're talking about the mood of a poem, okay, I was going to talk about myself, but then I decided I shouldn't, but I'm going to anyway, just because it's the first thing that popped in my head. When I write poetry a lot of times, there is not necessarily a mood of sadness, but there is a mood of pathos, and ultimately when I write, there's a lot of pity me, or poor me, look what's going on in my life. So when we're talking about mood, I'm going to bring up Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Coleridge. So looking at this poem, right, you hear people that refer to this, and they talk about, well, I think people are going to tell you the mood is sad in this poem, that the mood is downtrodden, when ultimately, if people talk about like the albatross around his neck, the weight that he's carrying, and the underlying, gray, dark, gloomy kind of tone. But ultimately, if you were to break this poem down, okay, it's a story, and you think about the adventure that he's talking about the entire time, right? Now, a good example of this is actually if you go to the very end of the poem, right? So he takes you on this journey. At the very end, okay, let's read the last little bit here. He went like one that hath been stunned, and is in sense forlorn. A sadder and a wiser man, he rose the morrow morn. Okay, so my ultimate point here is somebody's going to come to you and say, oh, the mood of this poem, it's sad. But when you're looking at it, he's telling a story. He's continuing the story from start to finish. I find that, and ultimately, look at this last bit. He's ending the poem. He rose the morrow morn. What does that mean? He wakes up tomorrow morning. Despite all that he's been through, he is continuing ahead. He hasn't ceased to exist. He hasn't disappeared. He hasn't disintegrated into, evaporated into thin air. He's waking up the next day after his trials and tribulations, despite the albatross around his neck, despite the weight of everything he's been through, the burdens that he's carried, maybe he still carries, whatever. So when we're talking about mood, let's go back here to the middle of the poem. Let's go to the beginning. I'm winging this. I did not have this prepared, so bear with me. All right, we're starting at the beginning here. right? This is an adventure, right? He's talking about this is action. This is an action-based poem. He's talking about, okay, what's going on, the waves, right? The narrative talks, okay, the ship, and he's describing the setting and the craziness and everything that's happening. The sounds, right? He's using alliteration and he's using onomatopoeia for everything that's going on here. He's using the albatross, is, this huge symbol of what does the albatross represent, okay? Everything that's hanging heavy when you are struggling with whatever you're struggling with in life, and you've got this, albatross on your neck, everything that you're carrying with you, the extra weight, the extra, it's like limbs that you wish you could cut off, but that's a really poor example. It's like junk, crap in your life you wish you could just cut out, but it's there, and it's weighing heavy on you. Now, he goes into, I guess what my main point is here in reading this poem, yeah, he goes through a lot of, shit, but even each little bit, right, there's hopefulness, there's a sense of like, oh, I'm going through this, but I am going through it. Not I'm going through it and it's going to be the end of me. I'm going through it and I'm continuing on and I'm going to get through until the end. And you can kind of get a sense of that throughout the poem. So I really like this poem. When it comes back to mood, I think my ultimate point here is, if you're talking about mood in the context of poems, right, you want to be really aware of not just picking up on maybe the mood that people are going to first assign to the bit of writing based off of maybe a general kind of summarized, not analysis, but a general summary of, maybe a feeling that they get from the poem. That might not necessarily be what the author is actually trying to portray. So you've got to keep that in mind. That's mood. The next thing we're going to talk about here is going to be in the next video. So that's that. That was relatively short, but hey, thanks for listening, and stay tuned.